Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part. What If Ninja in Jujutsu Kaisen? You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name in the description below. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 71, Kyoto Jujutsu High Scheme. Mai said, "Oh my, it's been a long time since we last met. I wonder how much your strength has improved." Mai, who was walking in the front, glanced at everyone and her gaze finally stopped at Maki. TSK. Still looking so superior. There were a few people following behind her. Miwa, who had long blue hair draped over her shoulders. She had a dazed look on her face, and was looking around carefully. Kumo Noritoshi crossed his arms, looking calm and cool. A cute little girl with golden twin ponytails, Nishimiya Momo. And Mekamaru. Wow! Is this all metal? Are you Iron Man? Yuji and Nobara exclaimed. Apparently, they were surprised by Mekamaru's appearance. But on second thought, if a panda can be a sorcerer, then adding Iron Man to the mix wasn't surprising. For a while, the two sides confronted each other, and the atmosphere became tense. After Gojo and Utaheim finished introducing the rules of this competition, Yuji raised his hand and asked, "Gojo-sensei, where is Kazuma? I haven't seen him for several days." As soon as these words came out, everyone turned their eyes to Gojo and Utaheim. Gojo also asked, "Oh yeah, where is Kazuma?" Everyone was speechless. He's a teacher, and even he doesn't know this? At this time, Utaheim stepped forward to explain, "Kazuma is currently researching a new curse technique. He may be late, but he will not be absent." After saying this, Utaheim was deeply moved. After these few days, she had come to admire Kazuma completely. He fainted, then woke up in pain and then again fainted. This cycle repeated for 2 whole days, but Kazuma still managed to hold on. With such perseverance, Utaheim even suspected that even without her and Shoko's help, Kazuma might have been able to get through it on his own. Suddenly, she realized why Kazuma was so strong. Now, on the 3rd day, Kazuma's condition had gradually stabilized. But half of his body was covered with strange-shaped wood. However, he had said that there was no need to worry and that it could be resolved with just a thought. Now, the danger was basically over, and only Mei was left to accompany him. Oh, so that's how it is. If someone else had said that they were busy researching curse techniques, they would find it absolute nonsense. But since Kazuma was the one who had said so, it made sense. They were already looking forward to it. What new technique would Kazuma come up with this time? Kyoto Jujutsu. Pre-war meeting room. All the students of Kyoto Jujutsu High stood quietly on the tatami mat, looking at Principal Gakagenji, who had called them over. "Follow the plan and kill Yuji." A hint of ruthlessness flashed across Gakagenji's old face. This is what the higher-ups want. Yuji is an unstable time bomb. No one knows how many of Sukuna's fingers he can accommodate. If he can't bear it anymore and Sukuna completely wakes up, the consequences will be disastrous. So, I want you to kill him accidentally in the team competition. Nishimiya Momo curled her lips and complained in her heart. How annoying. Can't we all just live in peace? It's such a hassle. Mai frowned and asked, "I'm afraid this matter is not that simple, right? Although Yuta is not here this year, they have Kazuma, who is really strong." Having said this, she turned her gaze towards Tadu, who was leaning against the wall. When Tadu heard the name Kazuma, he felt a chill run down his spine. He couldn't help but recall those strange eyes in his mind. Gakagenji explained, according to the news, Kazuma's strength is comparable to Yuta, so he will not participate in the competition. What? On par with Yuta? Doesn't that mean he's a special grade sorcerer? Everyone looked at Principal Gakagenji in disbelief, but he remained seated on the tatami mat, as motionless as a mountain. Obviously, as the principal, Gakagenji wouldn't lie about this matter. Doesn't this mean that Tokyo Jujutsu High has one more special grade sorcerer? They had heard Utaheim mention Kazuma. It was said that he was a rare talent introduced by Gojo not long ago. But who could have thought that in such a short time, he would become so strong? Not long after entering school, he had already reached the level of a special grade? Tadu's eyes lit up, and the haze in his heart dissipated. So, the one he had faced last time was a special grade sorcerer? Then his loss was understandable, and not shameful. Mai then asked, but principal, killing is clearly prohibited, right? If we kill Yuji, how will we face Gojo? Gakaganji said, don't worry. Killing is clearly forbidden, but strictly speaking, Yuji is not a person. So, there will be no consequences. Then he said impatiently, alright, just do as I say and don't ask too many questions. Yes. The whole crowd sighed in amazement. If they could, they didn't want to kill their fellow sorcerers. At least in their hearts, Yuji was Yuji, and Sukuna was Sukuna. Principal Gakaganji no longer seemed to be the same person as before. It's all the fault of those old guys at the top. Sorry to keep you from talking too much. Tadu said with disdain and stood up to leave. Kumo Noritoshi looked at Tadu and said in a deep voice, Tadu, come back. Tadu paused and stared at him. He asked, are you teaching me how to do things? Noritoshi said, Principal Gakaganji is still talking. Tadu laughed and said, do you want to hear the old man's nonsense? If so, suit yourself. But I don't want to kill my own people. What a ridiculous strategy. You go do it yourself. Takada-chan will appear as a guest on a walking show later. How can I let her down? Is this why he is in such a hurry to leave? The competition is about to start, okay? Noritoshi frowned and said calmly, you can watch the replay later. Come back. Tadu seemed to be irritated by this and said, as a true fan who has been following her for 2.5 years, you want me to be absent? I want to watch it live. Even the gods can't stop me. Or, do you want to fight me? Chapter 72, Meimei's Reward. As soon as Tadu spoke, the atmosphere in the conference room suddenly became solemn. Miwa and Momo shrank their necks and silently stepped back, wanting to persuade but not daring to. Seeing that Gakaganji's face was becoming increasingly gloomy, Mai held her forehead helplessly and was about to speak. Just then, Tadu's cursed energy suddenly erupted, and he glanced at everyone. He said, listen to me, you as well, old man. I have long given up hope on you guys, who have terrible taste in women. Go ahead and kill Yuji yourself. I won't interfere. But if you dare to command me to give it a try? See if I dare to kill you. Boom! A terrifying aura spread instantly, shocking everyone in the room. A bunch of puppets of the higher-ups, pathetic. After leaving these words, Tadu slammed the door and walked out. Inside the viewing room, teachers from both schools had arrived. Gojo, Utaheim, and others sat in the first row. At the back were the two principals, Yaga and Gakaganji. At this moment, Meimei suddenly pushed the door open and sat down next to Utaheim. She waved her hand and said with a smile, sorry, I'm late. Utaheim's lips curved slightly, and she leaned closer to Meimei. She said in a low voice, Meimei, you were alone in the cave with Kazuma, nothing happened? Meimei crossed her legs and slightly opened her red lips. She said with a lack of interest, hey, he's almost become a wooden man. He can't do it even if he wants to. I just cleaned his face a few times. Cleaned his face? Utaheim slightly blushed and looked at Meimei's big and round assets. She thought to herself, wouldn't this kind of reward suffocate Kazuma to death? At this moment, Gojo asked, Meimei-sensei, why hasn't Kazuma come yet? The teacher in charge has his list. As Gojo finished speaking, the others also turned their eyes to Meimei. A glimmer of light flashed in Gakaganji's dim and turbid eyes. As someone who often deals with high-level executives, he was almost tired of hearing the name Kazuma. It seemed that the higher-ups had a very bad impression of Kazuma. What on earth did he do to make those old guys hate him so much? Meimei leaned lazily on Utaheim's shoulder and said, don't worry, he should be here soon. Well, I also want to know what Kazuma has taught during this period of time. Have my lovely students made any progress? It seems that the only way to draw a conclusion is through the next match. There were still 5 minutes left before the competition, but Gojo couldn't wait any longer. He picked up the microphone and looked at the students on the screen. He announced, "The game will start soon. Let our Utaheim-sensei give a pre-game speech." Utaheim complained, "Hey! The microphone is in your hand, so can't you speak for yourself? Also, is it really okay to start the game early?" After a round of complaints, Utaheim picked up the phone, cleared her throat, and said gently, "Well, it's inevitable to get injured during a match. Well, everyone should cooperate with each other." Gojo said, "Utaheim-sensei is a little socially anxious. Students, don't mind it. Then the exchange event will start, now." The sudden roar startled Yaga. Yaga said, "Gojo, what are you yelling about all of a sudden? What if old man Gakkaganji has a heart problem?" Gakkaganji raised his eyebrows and picked up the microphone. He said, "Humph, my heart is very healthy." In the forest. Students from both schools twitched their lips as they listened to the voices on the radio. After complaining in their hearts, they all set off and galloped through the woods. 4 people from Kyoto Jujutsu High ran quickly. Noritoshi frowned and asked, "Has Tadu not come back yet?" Tisk. Mai helplessly spread her hands and said, "Who knows about that guy? He won't come back even if the world ends if he hasn't shaken hands with his Takata-chan. Let's just follow the principal's instructions." Momo quietly turned her face to the side and complained in a very low voice, "What a hassle. Can't you just try to keep peace? How annoying." Noritoshi said, "It doesn't matter if Tadu is gone. Panda and Gojo's student are the only 2 who are a bit troublesome, but the others are nothing to be afraid of. We just need to disperse them one by one, and then we can easily kill Yuji." In previous years, with the presence of the 2 monsters, Yuta and Hikari, they were completely crushed. But now, one of them had gone abroad and the other had been fired by the higher-ups, so Tokyo Jujutsu High was very weak. Mekamaru and Momo, flying in the sky, were carefully searching for their target, Yuji. Meanwhile, on the other side, Maki was holding a spear, looking extremely fierce. Following behind her were naturally Yuji, Nobara, Panda, and Inumaki. There were also the divine dogs summoned by Megumi. Yuji asked, "By the way, where is the hidden cursed spirit?" Panda explained as he ran, "It should be at the junction of the 2 parts of the forest, but it will definitely not sit there and wait for us to kill it." Maki calmly analyzed, "Anyway, after we cross this path, we will split into 2 groups. Megumi will lead Nobara and Inumaki as one team. He will rely on the divine dogs to search for the scent of the cursed spirit, and the rest will follow me to search in another direction. I'll leave Tadu to you, Yuji." Yuji was full of confidence and said, "Don't worry. I've been wanting to try out the Rasengan that Kazuma has taught me, to see how powerful it is." In response, Maki smiled, with fighting spirit burning in her eyes. She couldn't wait to try out the results of her training in the 8 inner gates. Just then, Megumi suddenly shouted, "Maki-senpai, be careful." Suddenly, a cursed spirit with a human face emerged from the dense woods ahead. "Go, there." It was hanging upside down, attacking everyone. Panda said disdainfully, "Just a small fry." However, the next second, boom! An extremely powerful gust of wind whistled past him. It was like a torrent pouring down, breaking trees along the way and raising a cloud of dust. When the smoke and dust cleared, an extremely strong body stood in front of everyone. As for the cursed spirit, it had already been blasted into pieces. Tadu was extremely excited at this moment, and he seemed to have endless energy. Chapter 73, Yuji's Special Brotherly Aura. Just now, he had successfully shaken hands with Takata-chan. Next time, it will be time to confess his love. He had even thought of a name for the child. Tadu looked forward and said, "Oh, they are all here, that's good." Tadu grinned, and his fists collided with each other, making a loud muffled sound. Maki said, "Yuji, I leave it to you." "Yes. Maki and the others quickly moved around from both sides. Just as Tadu was about to block them, Yuji came at him with a knee. Boom! A solid knee strike hit Tadu's face. Inside the viewing room, the teacher's eyes lit up when they saw this scene. As expected of the strongest fighter in Kyoto Jujutsu High, Tadu, killing the cursed spirit with one punch was okay. What's impressive is that he was completely unharmed by Yuji's full-strength attack. Yaga found the right opportunity and applauded. Gakaganji snorted coldly and did not respond. Yaga's obvious sarcastic tone showed that it was not a compliment at all. It was obvious that he was just using Tadu to highlight Yuji's excellence. Yuji, a student who had just joined the Tokyo Jujutsu High, was so quick that he was able to catch Tadu off guard. Gakaganji looked at the screen with cloudy eyes and sneered in his heart. I'll let you be proud for a while. Kamo Noritoshi should be making a move soon. The minor feud between the principals had been going on for years, so Gojo and the others did not intervene. In the forest. Bang! 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 The two figures clashed at high speed, punches colliding. Tadu roared angrily and punched out with great force, knocking Yuji away and slamming him hard against a tree. Tadu rubbed his nose and looked at the person in front of him with interest. He asked, "Are you Yuji?" He vaguely remembered Kazuma once saying that a man named Yuji might be able to give him a satisfactory answer. Yuji ignored the blood flowing from his forehead. He assumed a fighting stance, and warily looked at the tall man in front of him. What a tough guy. With all those knee strikes and punches, he still wasn't hurt? No wonder everyone attaches so much importance to this guy named Tadu. Thinking of this, Yuji not only did not retreat but became even more determined to fight. At this moment, Tadu slowly stepped forward and crossed his arms. He shouted with a serious expression, "Tell me. What kind of woman is your type?" "Ha?" Hearing this, Yuji's momentum instantly collapsed, clearly overwhelmed by these sudden words. 1 second, they were fighting for their lives, and the next second, he was asking what kind of woman was his type? Are you kidding me? However, looking at Tadu's expectant eyes, Yuji couldn't bear to refuse. He asked, why are you asking me this all of a sudden?" Tadu said, "Tell me, this is very important to me." Tadu took another step, getting closer to Yuji. He stared into Yuji's eyes with a burning intensity. Yuji swallowed and stepped back subconsciously. Finally, he held his chin, thought for a while, and said seriously, "If I really had to say, I think I like tall girls with big butts. Something like Jennifer Lawrence." At this point, Yuji himself touched his head a little embarrassedly. After all, this kind of thing is better kept to oneself. Saying it out loud feels a bit awkward. Tadu's eyes widened when he heard this, and his body violently shook. Suddenly, he looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, and 2 streams of crystal-clear tears dripped down his cheeks to the ground uncontrollably. He kept muttering, "It's true, he didn't lie to me. Kazuma didn't lie to me." If Kazuma saw this scene, he would just say. Yuji's domain had been triggered, Brotherhood for all. The password is correct, the screen is loading. Memories that didn't exist appeared in Tadu's mind. Tadu automatically imagined a 10-year deep brotherhood with Yuji. Soon, Tadu fell into a wonderful world. There, he spent a joyful high school life with Yuji, and the two became inseparable friends. Afterwards, Tadu mustered up the courage to confess his love to Takata-chan but was rejected and given the good guy card. Takata responded, "Tadu, you're a good person, but we're just not meant to be." Under a cherry tree, Tadu stood in a daze, letting the petals fall on his head. Suddenly, Yuji appeared like a ray of light. From then on, Yuji patiently comforted him and helped him move on from heartbreak. That day, Tadu made up his mind to be a Sigma man. In just a few seconds, Yuji's position in Tadu's mind became irreplaceable. At this time, Yuji was stunned. Looking at the tough guy in front of him suddenly bursting into tears, he helplessly spread his hands. He asked, are you okay? Should we still fight now? After all, we are rivals, right? Did this guy cry just because of his answer? To-do wiped away his tears and said, "No. We are besto friendo." Yuji said with some confusion, "Ah? If I remember correctly, this is our first time meeting, right?" To-do said, "No need to say more, let's spar as close friends." Without waiting for Yuji to react, To-do took a step and attacked Yuji. The two men fought again. Rather than a battle, it seemed more like To-do was guiding Yuji with his moves. At the same time, in the sky, Momo rode on her magic broom and looked at the two people below. After hesitating for a moment, she finally dialed a phone number. In the forest not far away. Noritoshi answered the call, "It doesn't matter." To-do himself said he wouldn't stop our actions. Miwa, Mekamaru, Yuji is right in front, let's go. Inside the viewing room, everyone stared at the screen. The scene just now was obviously seen by everyone, causing Gojo and the others to laugh so hard that their stomachs were about to cramp. Only Gakaganji had black lines on his face, and the cane in his hand was almost crushed. Gojo said, "Ha ha ha. This To-do is really interesting. He's quite my type. Yaga, how about we poach To-do over here?" Gojo laughed and looked at Yaga behind him. Cough. Cough. Yaga coughed twice and gave him a sharp glare. "The principal is sitting right next to you. How can he say such a thing? Doesn't he have any respect for him at all?" However, at this moment, the screen showing Yuji and To-do suddenly went black. Then, countless snowflakes appeared. Chapter 74, A New Kazuma. Hey! What's going on? Is the surveillance broken? That shouldn't be the case. I specially asked someone to renovate it before the competition. Gojo was very confused. Just when everyone was worried about it, a smile appeared on Gakaganji's lips. He said, "It's normal. Maybe it was caused by a fierce fight." Everyone nodded in response to this without too much doubt. After all, similar situations had occurred many times in the previous two competitions. At that time, with the existence of Yuta, more than one surveillance camera was damaged. Yutaheim curiously looked at Mei, who was standing next to her with a calm face and holding her fair chin with one hand. Yutaheim asked, "Mei-san, don't you find the scene just now interesting?" Mei closed her eyes tightly and put a finger in front of her red lips. She said, "Shu, I'm looking at Kazuma." Upon hearing this, Yutaheim understood immediately that Mei had been using the crows to know about Kazuma's situation. As for the competition, she didn't seem to care at all. Deep in the forest, inside a cave, Kazuma walked out leaning against the wall, with the golden sunlight shining on his cheeks. He spread his hands, narrowed his eyes, and welcomed the sunlight, as if he had been reborn. The fusion of Hashirama's cells was nearing completion, and the inhuman pain that had been felt before had disappeared. Taking out the mirror given by Mei, Kazuma's mouth twitched as he saw his appearance. At this moment, half of his body had almost completely turned into wood. Branches had grown from his right arm, and flowers had even bloomed on his face. Shit! He has become wood release white Zetsu? That's impossible! Boom! Kazuma's body shook violently, and the wood, branches, and flowers on his body instantly turned into powder. Instead, a sturdy body with clear lines appeared on the mirror. Every inch of muscle on his body seemed to contain explosive power. Transformation successful. Is this the power of concentrated Hashirama cells? Every cell in Kazuma's body was filled with a vast power, almost ready to burst out. And every cell contained a huge amount of chakra. From now on, the word lack of chakra will no longer exist in his dictionary. Kazuma walked out of the cave and raised his hand slightly. Wood release, cutting technique. Swish! Countless sharp wooden sticks suddenly pierced out from the ground, instantly sealing off the entire cave. Seeing this scene, Kazuma's mouth slightly curled and he nodded with satisfaction. As the saying goes, high risk, high reward. This time, after fusing with Hashirama's cells, he gained a huge amount of chakra. Most importantly, he can now successfully use wood release techniques. His strength has made a qualitative leap at this moment. To complete the system mission, he will have to penetrate Hanami with wood release. For that, and the technique of insertion would be the most suitable. By the way, Hanami seems to be very good at controlling trees. In the original story, he had controlled a giant tree and chased Yuji and the others to kill them. Kazuma wonder if his wood release, deep forest emergence could beat it? Kazuma couldn't wait to test it out. Mei had just left not long ago. Calculating the time, the sister school exchange event should have already started. In that case, Kazuma clapped his hands and instantly created several shadow clones. Kazuma said calmly, "Find everyone's location, and place flying thunder god marks everywhere." Yes. The shadow clones quickly ran deep into the forest. Thinking of facing the upcoming 4 disaster curses, Kazuma became serious. He did not become arrogant just because of his increased strength. Flying thunder god marks must be deployed as soon as possible. Fusing with Hashirama's cells and mastering the power of wood release is just the beginning. The next step is the Rinnegan. Therefore, Kazuma did not plan to return to the viewing room, but wait here for Jogo and his companions to arrive. Then he slowly raised his head. He smiled and waved at the crow on the tree. Then, a vortex appeared and he disappeared on the spot. Let's return to the playing field. Bang! Yuji exchanged punches with Tadu, and was knocked back several meters. TSK, this guy is really powerful. It seems that he can only use that move. Yuji slightly bent his body, and put his palms together. A red energy ball formed by compressed and condensed cursed energy appeared in his palms. This is the Rasengan that Kazuma had taught him. But with his current ability, Yuji could only condense it into the size of a basketball. Gojo had once said that he was currently unable to use a cursed technique because most cursed techniques are inherently present in the body. Unfortunately, it seemed like he didn't have an innate cursed technique, and his supernatural physique was his only advantage. But Kazuma's Rasengan is different. After initially mastering it, Yuji discovered that Rasengan is strictly speaking not a technique at all, but a special way to compress cursed energy. As long as a person has cursed energy and masters this magical compression method, they have a chance to use it. It was precisely because of this that Yuji admired Kazuma even more for being able to come up with such a wonderful method. Tadu looked at the red energy ball in front of him and asked curiously, "What kind of cursed technique is this?" He could clearly feel the terrifying power contained within that energy ball, and it was constantly increasing as Yuji accumulated his power. At this moment, Yuji became alert and decisively threw out the Rasengan. But he did not throw it towards Tadu. Instead, he threw it above the tree trunk beside him. Almost at the same time. Bang! A bullet made of cursed energy was fired and it collided with the Rasengan. The bullet was quickly destroyed, but the power of the Rasengan remained undiminished. Before the Rasengan even arrived in front of her, a violent gust of wind had already appeared on her cheeks, causing her to feel pain. Mai's eyes widened. She suppressed the shock in her heart, jumped back and barely dodged. Boom! The big tree was instantly crushed by the Rasengan. Looking at the big tree where she was before, Mai took a deep breath. What a powerful force! Didn't they say that Yuji had no other means of attack besides brute force? What's going on with this red ball of energy? Yuji said, "Are you satisfied with the power? This is the unique skill that Kazuma taught me step by step." Yuji shook his numb wrist and smiled excitedly. Mai asked, "Is that Kazuma's creation?" Yudaheim had once said that the most frightening thing about Kazuma was not his strength. It was his terrifying creative ability. Chapter 75, Tokyo vs. Kyoto. Presumably, this strange energy ball should be one of the Kazuma's creations. This cursed technique exerted this much power in Yuji's hands. What would it be like if Kazuma himself uses it? The more Mai thought about it, the more frightened she became. If she has the chance in the future, she will definitely try to get to know Kazuma better. Nice power. Suddenly, an indifferent male voice sounded. Yuji turned around and saw Kumo Norikoshi on the tree trunk behind him. He was pulling a bow and arrow to its full length and aiming it at him. At the same time, a figure flashed by his side. Mechamaru opened his palms and an energy cannon condensed in his palms. The hunting time begins. Yuji looked around intently and gritted his teeth. He said, "Am I surrounded?" Wrong. Yuji looked at the muzzle of the revolver pointed at him, the bow that was drawn to its full length, and the mechanical bullet that was about to fire. A bad feeling crept into his heart. Do these people want to kill him? Just at this moment. Clap. Yuji and Tadu instantly switched places. Everyone was stunned, and Norikoshi found that Yuji had suddenly appeared on the top of the tree with a confused look on his face. Is this Tadu's cursed technique? Boom! A punch came at them fiercely, and everyone quickly moved away to avoid it. I told you, if you dare to get in my way, I'll kill you. Tadu was like a ferocious beast, his eyes sweeping over everyone. Norikoshi was upset and retorted, "You clearly said that, if we dare to command you. Get lost. It's all the same." Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by an angry roar. The atmosphere suddenly became quiet. After a brief silence, Norikoshi put away his bow and arrow and passed by Tadu. Seeing this scene, Yuji, who was on the tree, was even more confused. What on earth is going on? That guy wanted to kill me just 1 second ago, and now they are fighting among themselves? I said, what an annoying guy. Mechamaru said, looks like we have to evacuate temporarily. Miwa clenched her fists and said excitedly, that's great. Norikoshi said calmly, with Tadu blocking us, we can't kill Yuji. But we cannot disobey the order of Principal Gakaganji. We must evacuate temporarily and slowly look for an opportunity. After they left, Tadu looked at Yuji and said, finally, no one can disturb us. Come on, let's continue the competition. But before that, Tadu suddenly walked up to Yuji, hooked his shoulders, and smiled. Tadu said, since I saved you just now, can you teach me about that energy ball you just used? Yuji said, ah? You mean the Rasengan? This is what Kazuma taught me. He holds the copyright, so I need his consent. Tadu was shocked and said, hey. We are close friends. High in the sky. Watching everything below, Momo sighed and said, this is a complete mess. Anyway, keep going. I'm feeling extra cute today too. However, at this moment, a Shikigami wrapped in lightning with a face like an owl suddenly appeared above her. Is this Megumi's new? Boom! Momo was caught off guard and struck down by the lightning summoned by Nu. Norikoshi and the others, who were running below, saw this and were about to provide assistance. Swish! An iron nail infused with cursed energy flew by at high speed, and they narrowly avoided it. The iron nail cut through the air, spun at high speed, and suddenly pierced into the thick tree trunk. After a slight obstruction, it actually pierced through the trunk. Norikoshi and the others looked at the pierced tree in the distance with lingering fear, utterly shocked. What a powerful piercing force! What on earth is going on? Forget about the energy ball that Yuji used before. How come even Nobara is so powerful? Although the mastermind of the sneak attack had not yet appeared, they had already done their homework before the competition. Among the students of Tokyo Jujutsu High, only Nobara uses nails as weapons. But how is she this strong? If their bodies had been struck just now, they would have been pierced instantly. Just when they were puzzled, a voice sounded, yes, the speed and power have been greatly improved after compressing the cursed energy. Kazuma's compression method works really well. Nobara put one hand on her waist, holding a hammer. She walked out of the bushes with a satisfied smile on her face. Following behind her were Maki, Panda, and others. Just now, the clever Panda recalled what Gojo had reminded him before the match. Kyoto Jujutsu High might target Yuji unfavorably. In addition, Kyoto Jujutsu High students had not run into them. It seemed like they were deliberately avoiding them. This was very different from previous year's competitions. They immediately thought of this possibility, their target is Yuji. Kazuma again? Mai exclaimed. Noritoshi and the others looked at Nobara with serious eyes. It seems that their increased strength is related to that person named Kazuma. In this case, they could no longer afford to be complacent. Megumi looked at them fiercely and asked, "Kamo-senpai, are you planning to kill Yuji?" What responded to him was a flying arrow. Everyone engaged in an all-out brawl. Maki swept Miwa away, and Megumi faced Noritoshi. Panda roared and swung his fist at Mekamaru. The moment Mai saw her sister Maki, she clenched her fists and held the revolver in her hand, ready to shoot at any time. But she wouldn't do that. She would wait until Maki gets rid of, useless, Miwa before fighting her alone. Even though she was the younger sister, it doesn't mean that she will lose to her older sister. In the distance, Nobara continued to hit nails, chasing the falling Momo. Momo's cheeks puffed up with anger and she said, "Damn it. I'm your senior." Chapter 76, Surge in Tokyo Jujutsu High Strength. The students from the two Jujutsu Highs started a battle in the forest. At this moment, they had already forgotten about the search for the hidden cursed spirit. At first, the two sides were evenly matched. But with Maki's three sharp shouts, "Opening gate, open. Gate of rest, open. Open the gate of life." With a loud bang and a surge of air, Maki was surrounded by wind and her body burned with materialized blue energy. At this moment, she was like a female war god who had killed countless enemies. At this moment, the might of Toji 2.0 was revealed. Noritoshi, Mai, Mekamaru, and the others were all shocked by this momentum. The situation suddenly turned around, and Kyoto Jujutsu High was losing their ground. Miwa was the first to be knocked dozens of meters away by Maki. What a terrifying aura! Could this be another cursed technique created by that guy named Kazuma? But wasn't Maki born with zero cursed power? How? Before Miwa could figure it out, a cold female voice suddenly came from behind her. "Congratulations, you guessed it right." A blow hit her on the back of the neck, and Miwa's head tilted as she fell to the ground. Maki did not stay for too long and attacked the rest while the 8 inner gates was still active. At the same time, outside the venue, a bald curse user was particularly excited and said, "Gojo is 1.9 meters tall, right? A cloth hanger made of him must be the most perfect work of art." Jogo was speechless and asked, "Why hasn't Geto come yet? And the helpers he found are all so perverted and arrogant? He wants to turn Gojo into a cloth hanger? Who gave him the courage?" Mahito touched Dagon's round head, causing the latter to squint his eyes comfortably, and he smiled. Mahito said, "That guy said he was going to prepare some cursed tools to break the barrier. After all, the barrier in front of us was made by Tengen." Hearing this, the 4 disaster curses looked toward the barrier that enveloped the entire forest. "Sorry, I'm late." Kenjaku walked over slowly, holding a tiny silver needle in his hand. "You're finally here." Mahito jumped down from the roof and asked curiously, "Are you going to use this thin needle to break the barrier?" Jogo also gave him a disapproving look. Kenjaku said, "It's hard to say whether I can break it or not. After all, Tengen is the most skilled barrier user in the world. So, I just need to open a gap for you to pass through. And there is also an advantage in doing this, which is that it is not easy for Tengen, who is far away in the depths of the tomb of the Star Palace, to notice it immediately. He is second only to Tengen in terms of barriers. It is not too difficult for him to do this, not to mention that he has the silver needle that is specifically used for barriers. I will open a gap in the center of the highest point of the barrier to make it easier for you to drop from the sky and reach the center. Oh, by the way, we must also set up a barrier that specifically prohibits Gojo from entering. This is of utmost importance." Mahito looked expectant and said, "Then let's proceed according to the plan. I'll be in charge of borrowing the Sukuna finger from Jujutsu High. Let's go and make a big scene, Jogo, Hanami, and Dagon. The bigger the noise, the better. As for you..." Mahito looked at the bald curse user and said, "I'll leave Gojo outside to you, is that okay?" When Mahito said this, he smiled secretly. The only purpose of this guy is to attract the attention of Gojo and the others. To put it bluntly, they are just cannon fodder. No problem. Let me beat Gojo. He's the perfect cloth hanger material. Well, I wish you success. Mahito nodded and reminded, finally, here's a reminder. If you meet Kazuma, don't look into his eyes. Inside the viewing room, Gakaganji was stunned. He looked at the scene on the screen in front of him and fell into deep thought. What is going on? When did the people in Tokyo Jujutsu High make such great progress? It's fine that the girl named Nobara was chasing after Momo. But how did the 4th grade sorcerer Maki, who was born with 0 cursed energy, suddenly become so powerful? Even Noritoshi and Mekamaru were beaten by her alone? After a long while, Gakaganji turned to look at Yaga, who was grinning from ear to ear. He asked, Yaga, tell me the truth, what is going on? Seeing Gakaganji's expression, Yaga was very happy. He suppressed his joy and proudly said, you should ask the new teacher in our school about this question. A trace of doubt flashed across Gakaganji's eyes, and then he immediately thought of someone. You mean, Kazuma? At this time, Gojo spoke up, old man, you have a quick mind. Yaga is right. During this period, I deliberately lied and said that I had received news about Geto, just to let Kazuma come forward to guide the students. After all, I know his talent better than anyone here. Except Mei. At this point, Gojo sighed and said, but I didn't expect Kazuma to be so good at guiding students. Their progress has opened my eyes. Yutaheim, who was standing by, also showed praise, and at the same time, an idea came to her mind. It is definitely unrealistic to poach Kazuma and ask him to join Kyoto Jujutsu High. But if she can invite Kazuma to guide To-Do and the others, it will definitely help her students make great progress. It just so happens that she had helped Kazuma this time. If she invites him, he won't refuse, right? She then looked at Mei and asked, Mei-san, aren't you surprised? Mei said boredly, I am not interested in anything other than money. Yutaheim said, really? Then I wonder who was using the crows to keep an eye on Kazuma. Mei's expression froze for a moment, and she sighed, Yutaheim, you're also starting to learn how to tease people. Hearing this, Gakaganji sighed inwardly. It seems that the plan to kill Yuji has failed, and even this exchange event may end in a loss. He has already done his best, so let the higher-ups decide for themselves. He is already old. However, at this moment, swish, swish, swish. At this moment, all the talismans stuck on the wall suddenly burned, emitting light white smoke. Chapter 77, Students in Danger. The screen in front went black. This is the end of the game? And it's all red? But the students were clearly still fighting just a second ago. Yutaheim quickly stood up, with a bad feeling in her heart. Gojo and the others were also confused. At this time, Mei suddenly spoke up, they are foreign invaders, including the volcano head curse that Gojo had recorded in a video last time. Just a reminder, there are 3 accomplices beside him. Mei was a little angry at the moment because the blue-haired man with stitches all over his face actually gave her Crow a middle finger. What? How did they break Teninsama's barrier? Gakaganji suddenly stood up in disbelief. Oh no! That volcano is an unrecorded special-grade cursed spirit. Judging from its appearance, it should be born out of fear of natural disasters. The exchange event will stop immediately, and we must rescue the students as quickly as possible. They are completely powerless to resist a cursed spirit of this level. If we are a step slower, the consequences will be disastrous. Yaga was extremely anxious. Gojo patted the dust off his pants, stretched, and said in a serious tone, if nothing unexpected happens, those 4 are all special-grade curses, and their strength far exceeds that of ordinary special-grade cursed spirits. Everyone, let's get going. Our lovely students are waiting for us to rescue them. Every teacher had a serious expression, and Gakaganji even took out his weapon, an electric guitar. Only Mei did not show too much panic because she knew that Kazuma was about to take action. a barrier rose that blocked out the sky and the sun. The originally bright and clear sky suddenly dimmed. Not far away, several figures were running rapidly. Gojo glanced at Gakagenji, who was keeping pace with him, and joked, "Not bad, old man. Your legs and feet are still quite nimble." Yutaheim anxiously said, "Quick. Gojo, go in first before the barrier is completely set up." "It's too late." "Huh?" "The barrier has actually been completely set up, but because its effect was prioritized, it caused a visual delay." Thinking of this, Gojo thought to himself, "It seems that the other party has a unique understanding of barrier techniques." As they were talking, they had already arrived in front of the barrier. Now that he's here, he can just break it. Gojo raised his hand and placed his palm against the barrier. However, at the moment of contact, boom! A powerful repulsive force pushed Gojo back. Seeing this, Yutaheim and the others were shocked. Even Gojo was forcibly repelled? Is this barrier so strong? Wait, why were you bounced away, but I was able to go in? As she spoke, Yutaheim had already reached her hand into the barrier. The whole process was unobstructed, as if the barrier did not exist for her. Then, Mei and Gakagenji also successfully reached their hands in. Gojo's face suddenly darkened and he said, "It seems that the other party came prepared. They're not restricting others from coming and going freely in exchange for absolutely rejecting me? That means, except for me, you all can come and go as you please." As soon as these words came out, Yutaheim and the others were stunned. The intent couldn't be clearer. The purpose is to prevent Gojo from entering. It seems that the enemy is not only a master of barrier techniques but also has a solid grasp of intel. Things have gotten more troublesome. Gojo said, "The other party has obviously put in a lot of effort this time. The 4 disaster curses have all been dispatched. Do they want to kill all the students? Even if you enter now, I'm afraid you won't be their match." Gojo's tone became more serious as he said, "Because, apart from that volcano head, the other 3 are also very likely to have domains." Hearing this, Yutaheim clenched her fists, feeling powerless. At this moment, Mei suddenly spoke up, "Yutaheim, don't forget that Kazuma is still inside." Yutaheim's eyes suddenly lit up, her tense heart relaxing, replaced by an inexplicable sense of security. Yes. The incident had happened so suddenly that she had forgotten about Kazuma. That guy will definitely protect the students. Gojo let out a sigh of relief and complained, "Mei, why didn't you say so earlier?" Only Gakagenji looked puzzled. Why was Kazuma inside? But now was not the time to worry about that. Well, I guess except for old man Gakagenji, we all know Kazuma's strength. But we can't let our guard down just because of the security he brings us. After all, the enemies are 4 disaster curses. Even if Kazuma can handle them alone, what if they target the students? I'm afraid he won't have the time to protect so many students all at once. So, everyone, hurry inside. I'll break through this barrier as soon as possible and come to support you." As he spoke, Gojo had already risen into the sky, searching for weak points in the barrier. Yutaheim and the others nodded at each other and entered the barrier. The scene completely changed the moment they stepped inside. The sky took on a different hue. Under the cover of the barrier, the bright daylight had shifted into a dim, blood-red sunset. The moment they touched the ground, an overwhelming cursed energy surged toward them like a tsunami. The 3 tensed. Yutaheim couldn't help but shrink back, cold sweat dripping from her forehead. Mei dropped her usual calm demeanor, gripping her giant axe tightly. Gakagenji placed his old, bony fingers on his electric guitar, ready to act at any moment. What a terrifying aura! Is this the cursed energy of the 4 disaster curses, far surpassing even regular special-grade cursed spirits? Suddenly, a figure leaped forward, shouting crazily. "Hello? Hello? Hello? Why is there an old man and 2 women here? Where is Gojo?" Looking at the bald man wielding a kitchen knife, Gakagenji frowned slightly and said, "A curse user?" Although he wasn't the source of the overwhelming cursed energy, his strength shouldn't be underestimated. Mei, Utaheim, go protect the students first. I'll handle this. Gakaganji held up his electric guitar. A rock song was about to be played. At that moment, a dazzling light suddenly flashed in the sky. Chapter 78, Inumaki steps forward. A high-speed spinning ball smashed down from above the curse user's head. Rasengan. Boom. The wind howled. A massive spiral ball struck head-on, almost swallowing the bald curse user whole. When the smoke and dust cleared, the curse user, who had just been boasting about turning Gojo into a cloth hanger, was lying unconscious in a deep pit. Kazuma suddenly appeared beside everyone. Kazuma! The three immediately turned to the side. Gakaganji's mouth fell open, his eyes filled with disbelief. That's Kazuma? That energy blast just now had instantly knocked out the curse user? Before, Gakaganji had only heard rumors about Kazuma's strength but had never witnessed it firsthand. Now that he had, he realized that it was beyond extraordinary. Judging from his appearance, he couldn't be more than 20 years old. Kazuma said, "You have misunderstood. I'm just one of his clones. My real body is in the center of the forest. The exact battle situation is unknown." With that, Kazuma's clone vanished in a puff of white smoke. The mission here was complete, and this clone's memory would soon be transferred back to the main body. A clone? That guy really comes up with the weirdest techniques. Mei and Utaheim both thought to themselves. Gakaganji was utterly shaken. If just a clone is this powerful, what about his real body? Don't space out, old man. Kazuma is in the center of the forest, and I'm sure he's already fighting the 4 disaster curses. We need to help him. Mei gripped her axe and sprinted toward the forest's center. Utaheim said, "Principal, let's move. Even if we can't fight, we can protect the students and ease Kazuma's burden. Besides, my cursed technique can boost Kazuma's power. If we hold out until Gojo breaks through the barrier, this whole mess will be over." Gakaganji nodded, and they quickly rushed toward the center of the forest. The students from both schools had abandoned their fights and were now running for their lives. Behind them, Jogo stood wreathed in flames, an inferno stretching out in his wake. Hanami leaped from tree to tree, each step making the massive vegetation extend hundreds of meters forward. Dagon floated effortlessly on an ocean-like expanse, spitting water arrows at those fleeing below. Boom! A volcanic crater-like structure suddenly protruded from the ground. Raging flames erupted, rushing toward Jujutsu High students. Jogo stood on the flames, his eyes gleaming with madness. Watching the students flee in panic, he felt pure exhilaration. Kazuma had beaten him before, making him forget who he really was. He was a disaster curse. He was far above other special-grade cursed spirits. The flames surged forward, ready to consume everyone. Just then, Inanaki yanked down the collar covering his mouth and shouted at the approaching inferno. "Extinguish!" The moment he spoke, the searing flames instantly extinguished, vanishing into thick white smoke. Put! Cough cough! Inanaki staggered, clutching his throat as a sharp pain shot through him. The metallic taste of blood rose, but he swallowed it down. That was too much. Just using his curse technique once had caused such massive backlash. It was clear he was nowhere near the same level as the enemy. Inanaki was shocked to his core. Yuji turned back, and worriedly asked, "Inanaki-senpai, are you okay?" Maki warned, "Don't stop. These 3 cursed spirits are way beyond what we can handle. We have to hold out until the teachers arrive." Panda spoke in a deep voice, "To-do, I'll need you to use your curse technique to assist everyone later." To-do gritted his teeth and said, "I know. Why did these damn guys have to show up now?" His sparring match with his best friend Yuji was just getting good. If he could, he'd rip their heads off and dribble them like basketballs. Standing on the flames, Jogo looked surprised. "I didn't expect these ants to have such abilities." Was this the sorcerer Geto had mentioned? It was interesting. Still, he wanted to see how much backlash Inanaki could endure. Jogo glanced at Hanami, who stood atop a massive tree, and at Dagon, who was floating effortlessly on the water. Your turn. Let's turn Jujutsu High into ashes. Hanami and Dagon nodded. Boom! Hanami waved his hand, and massive tree roots burst from the ground. They twisted wildly like living creatures, lunging at Yuji and the others. In an instant, Dagon summoned an enormous tidal wave, crashing through the forest, smashing through trees as if they were nothing. Jogo was not to be outdone. He unleashed another roaring inferno, scorching everything in its path. Hanami frowned at the destroyed vegetation but didn't say anything. Flying high above, Momo's face paled with fear. She muttered in despair, "It's over. There's no escaping this. What do we do?" Below, the students had stopped running. There was nowhere to go. A combined attack of this scale was unavoidable. The only option left was to set up a barrier and hope that it would hold up. But everyone knew that it was a futile attempt. In the face of such overwhelming power, a barrier was nothing more than a fragile illusion of safety. Just as hopelessness set in, Inanaki stepped forward once more. He slowly pulled down the fabric covering his mouth, with an unwavering gaze. His lips parted slightly. A glimmer of blood was visible inside his mouth. Megumi grabbed him in alarm and said, "Inanaki-senpai. The backlash is too severe. If you keep going." Inanaki patted his shoulder, glancing at the group behind him. In a hoarse voice, he declared, "At this moment, the only thing that can save us is the ultimate curse technique." As a sorcerer, he understood what that meant. Using a cursed technique of such magnitude required an enormous amount of cursed energy, especially against an opponent of such overwhelming power. The backlash would be catastrophic. Chapter 79, Kazuma arrives. Just stopping Jogo's attack just now had almost made him vomit blood. This time, he was facing multiple attacks at the same time, and their power was far greater than before. The cost of stopping these attacks would be unimaginable. In the beat case scenario, his throat would be completely destroyed, and he would never be able to be a sorcerer again. In the worst case scenario, he would die on the spot. In just 1 second, countless memories flashed through his mind. Faced with the coming flood, sea of fire, and giant tree, Inanaki's thin body seemed extremely small. Yuji and the others behind him watched the scene. They gritted their teeth and clenched their fists. An unprecedented feeling of powerlessness surged in their hearts. Inumaki! Stop! Inumaki ignored it. He took a deep breath, and with the determination to die, he shouted with all his might. Stop! Bang! Before he finished his words, a yellow flash appeared, and a slender hand covered Inanaki's mouth. You've done a great job. Let me do the rest. After saying that, Kazuma formed seals with his hands and poured chakra into the ground. Earth release, earth-style wall. Boom! With a loud bang, an extremely tall and thick earth wall rose from the ground. Although in the Naruto world, this ninjutsu is only ranked as B rank, its effectiveness also depends on the caster. Kazuma was now no longer the same person he used to be. Since he had injected a huge amount of chakra, the earth-style wall he had summoned was like a majestic city. Boom! The earth-style wall shook violently for about 10 seconds, and then successfully blocked the attacks of Jogo and the others, showing no sign of damage. At this moment, everyone reacted. Kazuma! Yuji and the others said happily. Is he Kazuma? The students of Kyoto Jujutsu High had heard this name many times. The intuitive feeling they got when hearing this name was mysterious and powerful. Now, they finally saw Kazuma's true appearance with their own eyes. Looking at the extremely tall rock wall in front of them, they were extremely horrified. So strong. Just by casually making a move, he was able to summon such a huge earth wall. And he easily blocked the attack that had put them in a desperate situation. Kazuma indeed lived up to his reputation. Tadu swallowed his saliva and suppressed the shock in his heart. So, this is his true strength? He had thought that his eyes were his greatest reliance. But now, it seems that they were just icing on the cake. Even without those eyes, Kazuma could still easily defeat him. Speaking of which, he has to thank him for introducing him to a close friend who was worthy of his lifelong trust. Mai was also extremely shocked. She silently thought in her heart, with such strength, it's no wonder that Tadu, who was always domineering, suddenly became strangely timid when facing Kazuma last time. Now, it seemed that Tadu had backed down at the right time. Otherwise, he would have faced a dangerous punishment. She recalled the Rasengan used by Yuji, Nobara's surge in strength and the powerful physical skills that Maki had suddenly mastered. All of this had something to do with the man in front of her. In the sky, Momo placed her hands in front of her. Her face turned slightly red, and she said infatuatedly, "Amazing. Is he the Kazuma that Utahime-sensei often mentions? He looks very nice too. I wonder, does he like my cute self?" Mekamaru beside her breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It seems that we are saved for the time being." Kazuma turned around and looked at the people who were standing there in a daze and said with a smile, "Everyone, remember to stay away later." After saying that, he snapped his fingers and instantly removed the wall of earth blocking his way. Next, it's time to complete the system mission. Kazuma looked at the 3 disaster curses that were chasing after him. He waved his hand and said with a smile, "Long time no see, Kettle." This time, Jogo did not get angry. Instead, he urgently reminded Dagon beside him, "Quick! Turn your head away. Don't look him in the eye." Following Jogo's exclamation, Dagon immediately lowered his head. He stared at the ground, not wanting to meet Kazuma's gaze even with his peripheral vision. Jogo's actions were even more exaggerated, he actually closed his single eye tightly. He didn't plan to make the same mistake twice. Seeing this scene, Kazuma was speechless, and the corners of his mouth slightly twitched. Was it necessary to be so exaggerated? At this moment, a shout came from behind. "Kazuma!" Everyone looked back and saw Mei, Utahime, and Gakagenji rushing over. Yuji and the others were delighted when they saw this. "Wait a moment." Kazuma looked at Jogo and the other 2 and said calmly. Then, under the gazes of the 3, he walked toward the crowd. Seeing Kazuma dare to ignore them, Hanami looked at Jogo and Dagon and asked, "Are we really going to wait for him?" Jogo waved his hand and said indifferently, "The main purpose this time is to attract attention so that Mahito can steal Sukuna's finger. The longer we wait, the better it will be for us, right?" On the other side, Utahime said seriously, "I will use my curse technique for you. As long as we can hold out until Gojo breaks through the barrier." Kazuma ignored Utahime and looked at Gakagenji, who was standing aside with a serious expression and holding an electric guitar. Wasn't this the old version of the already old Yamamoto? As a conservative, he seemed to want to kill Yuji this time, but his plan had obviously failed. Utahime explained, "He is the principal of Kyoto Jujutsu High, Gakagenji." "Oh, then please take the students and hide away." Kazuma glanced at Gakagenji indifferently. He had no good impression of this person. After saying that, Kazuma turned and walked toward Jogo and the other 2, his eyes full of excitement. Utahime stamped her feet and said anxiously, "Hey! Do you really not need a boost?" She certainly knew that Kazuma was very strong, especially after his transformation. Now, he might be able to go even further. However, what he had to face this time were 3 special-grade cursed spirits of natural disaster level. Chapter 80, Kazuma vs 3 Disaster Curses. Mei said, "Okay, Utahime, Kazuma just doesn't want you to be in danger. Your curse technique has a small range. If you want to provide him with an amplification, you will have to be close to the battlefield. Just imagine, can you withstand a battle of this level, even just the aftermath? And we can't rule out the possibility that they will attack the students. Our mission is to protect the students and let Kazuma fight without any worries." Hearing this, Utahime nodded with a complicated expression, lamenting her own weakness. Soon after, except for Kazuma, the rest of the people evacuated to the rear. Mai asked, "Mei-sensei, Utahime-sensei, why did those 3 cursed spirits react so strongly when they saw Kazuma? Either they looked away or closed their eyes tightly, as if they were scared?" As soon as these words were spoken, they attracted curious glances from others, and even Gakugenji felt puzzled. After hearing what Mai said, it did seem true. The moment Kazuma appeared, the momentum of the three cursed spirits that had been chasing them collapsed slightly and was replaced by fear. Nobara said playfully, "You can ask Tadu-senpai about this. He knows it better than anyone else." Hearing this, everyone turned their eyes to Tadu. Tadu coughed and cursed Nobara in his heart. Why bring this up now? With so many people around, what about his dignity? And he's in front of his best friend, Yuji, right now. But under the weight of so many curious gazes, he finally said awkwardly, "It's all because of his weird eyes. Once you look into his eyes, you will fall into endless pain." Having said this, Tadu paused for a moment and then said with a serious expression, "It's terrifying. And that volcano head curse, he must have been affected as well." Suddenly, Yuji's eyes lit up. He clapped his hands as if he had suddenly realized something. "I was wondering why only his head was left last time." After the previous incident, he had asked Gojo, but the latter had just told him to figure it out himself. When he asked Kazuma, the only answer he got was that Jogo went crazy and hit himself. It was only now that he fully understood the truth. Damn it! As the one involved, he was only now realizing the full story. He blamed it on Gojo and Kazuma, those two riddlers. To put it simply, it's a genjutsu. Mei smiled as she parted her red lips. She was actually the first victim of those eyes. The suffocating feeling was unforgettable. After her explanation, everyone could roughly imagine just how terrifying it was. This ability is simply impossible to defend against. It's practically a second six eyes. I strongly suggest Kazuma follow Gojo's example and cover his eyes. Wait. At this moment, Maki said worriedly, "But if the three cursed spirits adopt such a countermeasure, won't Kazuma's eyes be useless in the next battle?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's expressions turned grim. That's right. If the opponents intentionally close their eyes or avert their gaze, won't Kazuma's ability be useless? So, can Kazuma still win? Or at the very least, can he hold on until Gojo arrives? For a moment, they couldn't help but worry about Kazuma. At the same time, they deeply felt the importance of information. After all, they had just experienced firsthand how terrifying these three cursed spirits were. Mei said, "Really? I actually want to see how long those three scourges can last against him." Mei curled her lips slightly. Then, she let a crow fly into the sky to observe the battle. Only those who truly understand Kazuma know that things like information gathering never worked on him. Ah? Mei-sensei, are you serious? As soon as the words fell. Boom! A roar like an explosion echoed from the battlefield. Four figures shot through the sky at the same time. Kazuma brushed the dust off his collar, looked at Jogo and the other two. He said jokingly, "My goodness, the disaster curses are all blind." Jogo closed his single eye tightly, not caring about Kazuma's ridicule at all. Jogo sneered, "Nothing to say, huh? If we don't look you in the eye, what are you going to do about it? Hanami, Dagon. Attack together. We must cut this brat into pieces today. Be careful to leave his head behind. I'm going to use it as a kettle." Jogo had never forgotten the idea of revenge. Daring to insult him again and again, calling him a kettle? He'll pay a heavy price. And this time, Gojo couldn't intervene, making it the perfect opportunity. Suddenly, they formed a triangle, completely surrounding Kazuma. Flames, giant trees, and tsunamis all surged toward Kazuma at once, their force no different from a true natural disaster. Kazuma sneered in his heart, "No way? Do they really think I only know how to use genjutsu?" He formed seals with his hands. Boom! The ground trembled as countless thick vines burst from the earth and soared into the sky. Under Kazuma's control, the vines quickly intertwined to form a massive wooden sphere, completely encasing him inside. Hanami saw this and slightly hesitated. Why can Kazuma control the forest too? But then, his expression darkened as he increased the speed of the giant trees. Humans, who only know destruction, aren't worthy of controlling nature. Boom! The combined attacks of Jogo and the others slammed into the wooden sphere. The sky shattered, the ground trembled, and terrifying shockwaves spread outward. Even the surrounding trees struggled to stay upright. That wraps up this part of What If Ninja in Jujutsu Kaisen. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.